Chapter 105 to 106. Team S was rushing through the narrow path surrounded by tall walls of jagged rocks when May suddenly felt Ray's hand on her shoulder, firmly stopping her in her tracks, almost making her fall onto her back due to how abruptly she was stopped mid-run. May quizzically turned her head in Ray's direction, her expression clearly asking what was the plan since their current situation was quite obvious. Thankfully, neither the ninja in front of them nor Kitsuha and his 10 squads would start their offensive until Ray and his girls reach a certain point in the narrow path. May was in Ray's squad for 2 years and by now she knew he would never let an opportunity to discuss the battle plan slip by, hence their momentary stop for a discussion. Well, May, you probably already know we will be jumped the second we reach the ambush point. It's time to get some things straight, Ray said, grinning at her, and that was when May knew she was in for another world of pain in a pretense of training. At least it really helps me to get stronger, she mentally grumbled while Ray obviously ignored her pouty face as he explained what he had in the store for her. Kitsuha looked through the telescope as the team downpour suddenly stopped, seemingly talking among each other. His face was instantly marred with a frown as he changed go in his mind when he saw them almost reaching the ambush point. He could already almost see his fame in IWA skyrocketing after he managed to take them down. The riches, the women, respect. Yeah, not once did he regret taking this mission despite the vehement protests of his father, the Tsuchikage. Why are they stopping? He asked his second in command, a woman whose name he deemed too unimportant. In his mind, he called her Sucker as she had one incredible tongue. I have no idea, Lord Kitsuha, the woman evenly said, pleasing his vanity by calling him Lord. It wasn't every day she was straddled with a man-child in the form of Tsuchikage's son. Tsuchikage's inept son at that. The rumors of how different Kitsuha and Kitsuchi are were quite the thing back home, after all. Both capable and very strong S-rank shinobi trained personally by the Tsuchikage. For that, the man deserved respect, and by extension her body whenever he asked. If it wasn't for his apparent ability as a ninja, no matter if he was the commander, she wouldn't bend to his antics. Sadly, while both brothers were strong as heck, Kitsuha was always the less renowned through the nations. The child even the Tsuchikage rather keeps a secret. In the end, it all boiled to one important fact. No matter how strong Kitsuha was, he was an utter idiot. Without somebody holding his hand, he would drive others to their death. She sighed as a sudden headache ran through her head. Why the heck did I take this mission to look out for the big and dumb again? I swear this is no different than these babysitting D-ranks when I was a genin. Kitsuha intoned. Prepare to move. We are going in, he said, making his second in command freeze. Damn you, bastard, she mentally wept. Wasn't it enough you fucked up the entire plan by sending them alone into the mountain path? Why the fuck would they stop? Maybe because you made it oh so obvious this was a trap, perhaps. She couldn't help but minutely scowl. Now you want to fuck it up even further by engaging with them when they are not even at the designated location? Captain, I think she tried to be a voice of reason, but you are not here to think but to satisfy my urges and listen to my orders. And I said we are engaging. Go and tell the troops to prepare. Kitsuha interrupted her coldly, flexing his powerful and dense chakra in order to remind her of her place. In the end, she could only resignedly do what he wanted of her. Hehe, don't you worry, girl. Today I will accomplish this mission and tonight I will show you that being obedient is very enjoyable, Kitsuha thought, utterly unaware of the depressing thoughts of his second in command. I am so fucked. Ray, Conan, and May were done planning and started to again run forward only to stop approximately 200 meters and turn to the mountain wall on the left side. Ray and Conan put their hands onto the surface of the cliff and both exclaimed, Earth release. Hidden cave. May instantly saw the rock part, but instead of a cave it created a pathway. A so-called third exit from the narrow mountain pathway. May was sure this was possible only due to Ray's nature sensing and his ability to pinpoint which part of the mountain wall was the thinnest, and therefore easiest to get through. Damn, that took quite a bit, Conan dryly stated, not really sounding happy, so May kept quiet as they again started running. For a few seconds, they were still surrounded by 2 walls of parted rock, but then a peaceful, massive, lush green clearing appeared in front of them, encompassed by tall, dangerous cliffs. A dead end. Meaning we are certainly not running from this one, May offhandedly noted. Despite hearing Ray's plan, she still hoped he only joked and they would run away. She didn't really feel ready for this. Team Downpour ran towards the opposite side of the clearing, their backs to the cliff, facing the only opening that led to this future battlefield of theirs. Ray chose this place especially because it would be impossible to sneak up on them, and the clearing was large enough for a battle between thousands of people while not having many obstacles. In his opinion, this was the perfect place for May to show the full power of her bloodline. Soon enough the enemies finally understood that Ray and Conan created a way out of their ambush and quickly followed them, amassing their forces in the clearing as they observed calmly waiting Team Downpour. waiting for them to gather. It was quite a surreal sight. On one side 3 relaxed figures. On the other, a 10,000-strong army made of mercenaries and slaves trained to be as good as genins with a few high-ranked ninjas mixed and hidden in it. This was the same tactic that Rei recognized was used in the anime for the Third Reikage. Except, instead of protecting their comrades, the Team Downpour was supposedly trapped since the enemies had no idea about their ability to fly. 3 versus 10,000. Certainly, Rei could see why this would work. No shinobi had unlimited energy or never got tired. There were only so many people one could kill in a day, and the longer this dragged out, the worse it would be for the Team Downpour. Or so, Rei surmised must have been the thinking of the tactician behind this plan. A pity the guy never accounted for large-scale area of effect ninjutsu, and most likely didn't believe that Rei and Conan could cast their destructive collaboration jutsu fast enough to counter the army. Rei grinned when he saw the smug face of Kitsuha as the IWA army finished gathering in the clearing. And so it starts, he said, and reached his right hand forward. His palm facing the sky as a ball of chakra threads suddenly appeared above it before it started rapidly fly high into the sky, only one thin thread connecting the ball with Rei's hand. Since you were so eager to deliver yourself here, I don't think you should be given the opportunity to leave. Rei muttered to himself in a menacing tone as his chakra flared, changing into earth nature while being mixed with nature energy as the jutsu was performed. Earth release, natural cage. Rei stated, interested if it would work exactly as he intended and how strong the earth release mix with nature energy would be while he pumped more of this mix through the lone chakra thread connecting his hand with the ball in the sky. The IWA army could only stare in bewilderment as the small ball of blue threads suddenly burst out in massive amounts of blackish chakra threads. One of their ends buried deeply into the ground while the other was still connected to the small, now black ball in the sky. Together they created something akin to a black bird cage made of threads encompassing the entire clearing. That was when Rei started pumping lightning chakra through the thread, and the gaps between the threads shimmered with blue arcs of lightning, making it impossible for anyone to get in or out as it trapped the IWA troops inside of the clearing. Obviously, nothing short of killing Rei would get them out of here. Hence, the army prepared for the battle. Well then, Mei, yet another test for you, Rei said kindly as he turned towards Mei. I prepared the stage, the rest is yours. He pointed at the army in front of them while being amused at Mei's baffled expression and trying to ignore Conan's muffled snickering. With an amused tone, he added, defeat them. Mei looked towards the army she was supposed to fight with a completely baffled expression. It didn't last long, however, as she schooled herself into a practiced indifference, the only indicator she was not okay being the minuscule shaking of her hands. Both Rei and Conan could see it in Mei's eyes though. Slowly but surely, the girl was gaining an unshakable resolve.
Mei was frightened.
Almost as much as she was excited. As much as the idea of fighting the army of thousands by herself scared her. It was the words of her 2 teachers that stopped her from freaking out. Her bloodline, Rei often told her she was a veritable army killer. It was time to prove she really belonged to Team Downpour, that she had the right and necessary strength to be a part of it. Mei charged forward. She was aware of how ridiculous she must have looked. One small girl charging at an army numbering in thousands, and yet, this was what she was trained for. Mei was getting closer and closer to the IWA army. 200 meters, she started molding her chakra. 150 meters, her hands snapped together in the familiar cross-shaped hand seal. 100 meters, in a burst of smoke, 19 shadow clones of Mei appeared, running alongside Mei. 50 meters, Mei was surprised no kunai was flying at her, yet only to realize with a pang of disappointment that she was not facing ninjas. Well, not entirely. The force in front of her might be around 10,000 strong, but it was mostly mercenaries or slaves that were rapidly trained into genins worth not even the clothes they wore. She doubted there were more than 300 real IWA ninjas in there, and most would be spread out in the enemy army, so there was nobody to attack her yet. With a smile, all 20 mice abruptly stopped 30 meters away from the army. Their chakra molding finished as they took a very deep breath, arching their heads backward while puffing up their chests. Boil release. Mei-chan's super-duper steamy surprise. She thought with a bit of regret, promptly deciding to rename all jutsu she named when she was just a small girl. All 20 mice simultaneously spat a monstrous amount of steam from their mouths straight at the enemy army. The steam created a huge white cloud that spread through half of the width of the clearing in all but a moment and was still spreading and towered at least 10 meters above their heads. The unamusing white cloud was rapidly rushing to engulf the army, creating various reactions from the IWA troops. Some were unbothered as they thought it was just a normal smokescreen, if a bit on the bigger scale. Others were horrified as their guts were telling them the cloud was something very dangerous. These people decided to spin on their heels and run away. That didn't go well, however, as behind them were their densely packed comrades. In but a second, the IWA army descended into utter chaos as the massive white cloud was about to engulf the front lines. It was only the small number of ninjas who were utterly speechless at the massive army-killing jutsu that was hurling their way courtesy of a small girl. Needless to say, not many believed their own eyes, and only when the screams of the mercenaries in the front lines reached them did their brain finally reboot, their instincts kicking in. Quickly, the experienced ninjas started channeling chakra into their bodies, covering them in it in an attempt to protect themselves from what they incorrectly guessed to be acidic mist made by boil release. The searing steam cloud was pushing itself through the ranks of the enemy army, engulfing more and more IWA mercenaries who deeply regretted even accepting this commission. Couldn't they tell that something was wrong when the Tsuchikage hired thousands of them to fight against 3 people? They wailed and squealed like pigs when the steam even softly caressed their bodies, not to mention anything about engulfing them entirely. The second it came into contact with unprotected skin, it started melting them alive as burning boils appeared all over it. The mercenaries could only furiously thrash in a vain attempt for the pain to stop as the steam reached beyond the skin and started liquefying their muscles, fiber by fiber, reaching all the way to the bones which were instantly being corroded as holes started to form in them, submerging the victim in a world of excruciating pain as the bones started shattering while being slowly dissolved due to a special ingredient in the cloud that had a nasty reaction to bones in particular. After all, Mei was also an apprentice to Tsunade, and Tsunade did study Kagaya bloodline into a nasty extreme. Innumerable deafening inhuman screams and screeches of untold suffering rang through the clearing, scaring the heck out of the experienced shinobi, the inexperienced slave genins, and the mercenaries alike as they now started pushing back, away from the still spreading cloud of searing death. Many were stomped to their death by their own comrades in the panic, only for those closest to the only exit to find out that they are trapped and realize that those who were stomped to death were in reality the lucky ones. 2 black strings were vertically along the sides of the narrow mountain path surrounded by tall jagged cliffs, a blue hue shimmering in between them, blocking the only way out. At first, the scared soldiers didn't even think about it, only when the first batch rushed through it and with a blue flash became just blazed corpses bathed in blue lightning flame, dropping onto the ground, not a meter away from the boundary of the blue hue, creating a pile of bodies there, did they stop in their tracks in even bigger fright. The frightened soldiers could only cry in disbelief as their bodies rattled in fear. They were trapped. Their heads snapped back to the quickly spreading cloud that was now halfway through the army, and they could only with wide eyes stare and wait for their turn, regretting ever coming here. Not every IWA soldier was powerless though. The 300 experienced IWA ninjas, and even some of the better slave genins, were able to some degree cover themselves in their respective chakra and save themselves or at least delay their eventual burning. At first, they also looked for a way to run away, but when they saw the barrier keeping them inside the clearing, they quickly resolved to put a hell of a fight before going down. The boiling steam finally reached the end of the clearing and enveloped the remaining despairing IWA troops only to hit the blue barrier that contained it, preventing it from spreading further. Half of the entire clearing was now submerged in a thick white cloud, and the screams, slowly starting to fade to a serene silence. Over 10,000 IWA soldiers came. Only a bit more than 400 of the most experienced ninjas still remained. The real battle just started.